The Deacons for Defense and Justice, commonly known as the Deacons, was a little-known civil rights African-American group which made its mark mainly here in Louisiana and in southern Mississippi cities from 1964 until the end of that tumultuous decade. The Deacons for Defense had its genesis in the lumber mill community of Jonesboro, Louisiana in 1964. I'm Ward Colin, a graduate student at Louisiana State University, and I'm going to introduce you to some amazing men and let them tell you their stories.
Okay, right here, this building here is the old Masonic Lodge. It's where the Deacons started out, where we had our first meetings. We had meetings at several other places, but that was one of the major places we had meetings because of the fact we couldn't have meetings everywhere. We had at some of the churches, but that's basically where the Deacons got started here in this old building. And that was in the early '64. And the reason for us organizing the Deacons because we had a lot of people from up north who was here to help us with our voters registration and to help us with a lot of other Jim Crow things that was going on during this time. And they didn't have any police protection because the police was trying to do everything they could against them because they didn't want them here. So we felt like if they come this far, risk their lives and their future to help us, we should do the same for them.
The primary goal for Louisiana's Deacons for Defense was to protect black sections of towns and civil rights activists, black and white, from those who did not want to see integration succeed and who did not hesitate to use violent acts to stop it. The Deacons armed themselves and made it clear that this sort of intimidation was going to stop one way or the other. And for the most part, the Klan backed down when confronted. If you have not heard of them, you aren't alone. The group is not discussed in high school history classes. It grew to include chapters in a dozen Louisiana and southern Mississippi cities. The Deacons acted only in defensive roles and only when provoked. In fact, only one white man was ever shot, and that was by accident. He also lived. The Deacons, whose overall membership probably never exceeded 200, was also very instrumental in marches, sit-ins, integration efforts, voter registration moves, and other key African-American movements during the civil rights. Although their visibility faded by 1970, about a dozen of these men still live in Louisiana and keep in contact with one another.
Deacons of Defense, if you read this Lance Hill's book called Deacons for Defense, he spells out when the Deacons were formed. They were formed one night in Jonesboro. Mike Less and I had gone out on the highway, and from Jonesboro to Monroe. And we got on the highway, 3 carloads of whites began to trail us. And telling Mike, well, we know about the 3 boys in Mississippi. We're just not going to die out here in between these 2 swarms. And that was the night we played chicken with the Ku Klux Klan.
The Deacons of Defense it wasn't that we were advocating violence, but we were a self-protection organization that defended our community. We weren't going to put up with the nonsense of the Ku Klux Klan and other races who wanted to, in other places they burned, murdered, and lynched, and we weren't going to tolerate it.
The Deacons were basically, just as I explained to you before, the ones that would take these weapons and defend the citizens, and that's what we did for ourselves as well as for others. We would take it on ourselves to arm ourselves and to make sure that we were given proper protection because homes were being bombed and burned, and nothing has been done about it.
I was more of a self-defense and protecting our community and voting registering people to vote, and trying to make the system that we live in better.
Well, I would think the hardened part of the deacons was like anybody else. I'd say that enough is enough. They are men with families, children, families as such, and they're men. You know, they're not shirt tails, as they say. They're not Uncle Toms. They are men. They would do whatever it takes.
A lot of them were World War II and Korean War veterans. They loved their country. They wanted to enjoy it, and they wanted their children and their grandchildren to be able to enjoy it. With a lot of them that went over to Europe and Korea and fought for, and that was the freedom of their community.
We found a purpose greater than ourselves. And that's when you get caught up in something. Get caught up in the wind. And you're guided by a force you cannot see. And once in it, the question is, when can we stop? When should we stop? You know, and the answer to that was when victory is won. So it was either continuing until victory, and in many cases until death.
During the weekend, the young whites would come in the community, and they would be drinking, and when they finished drinking, they used to come through the neighborhood and, you know, yell the N word and do different things in the community. And so on the weekends, we basically had a 1960 Infada. You know, we had our bricks and rocks when they would come through. You know, with that nonsense, you know, we were actually, we were rocking, you know, we were hitting them, throwing rocks and bricks, you know, trying to retaliate to them for the things that they were doing. If they caught you walking along in our community or walking outside of the community, a lot of times they would attack you.
Well, I think one in particular was the bombings. That's when everybody was up in arms, as we'd say. Well, not really up in arms, but that's when they were maddest, okay? That's when everybody was really ready to take them on, you know?
When you
and
say
of course,
bombings, what do you mean?
the bombing of houses, of homes, you know? I mean, these people actually go around throwing Molotov cocktails into your windows, into your porches, or wherever they can get close enough to throw it, to burn your house and to burn whoever's in there. They didn't care. So that's when the deacons or the protective forces would take their most stand is at that point, because everything was hottest at that point.
5,000 students of Southern started marching down on December 21st, 1961. And that demonstration was broken up with tear gas and fire hoses and dogs. And 21 of us went to jail. I was one of the 21 in jail with Dave Dennis, Loudon Rougeau, the Army Bailey. We spent the Christmas in jail, the Christmas of '61, in jail in Baton Rouge. And then the president of Southern, Felton G. Clark, was ordered by the Board of Education to expel us from school. So we were expelled from the university.
When we pulled up, I was in the car with Sam Barnes and Charles Sam. We were only three that went up there at first. And Charles Sam asked me to lay my pistol down and go in there and get them and walk out with them. Now, Charles Sims was if you heard him speak, he was very convincing in his speech. And, but my trust and confidence that Sam Bourne wouldn't leave me. You know, I had that kind of confidence no matter what the odds were. And Sam Barnes told me, see, you can leave your gun and go in there because I knew he had his. And he was going to back me up, whatever. When I walked in the door, before I got inside, I could hear them laughing because they felt like they had him cornered, you know. And when I walked in that door, all of the laughter stopped and it got as quiet, you could hear the pin drop. And one of the claimants said, here come them damn deacons. And Fletcher Anderson and Lake Griffin got up and walked out. You know. And that's the time I really remember most about Sam was a very bold and brave individual. We had history where you had a march that was longer than Selma to Montgomery from Bogalusa to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and very hostile territory. And but you don't hear that much about it. Charles Sims was the president of the Deacons, and he was the voice of the Deacons. But you know, when you start talking about the boldness of a deacon that didn't have any fear, you was Sam Barnes, Rowan Burris, you know, the Bertrand Wise. You had a lot of the older guys that they didn't have any fear. I started out as a protester. I was a street soldier, I guess you would say, in the Deacons For Defense and Justice. I was one of the younger members.
And how old were you at this time?
In 1964, I hadn't made 17 yet. I was 16.
I was one of the persons who felt that it was unfair practice and that unless we stood up and showed that we did not agree with it and that we would go whatever extent it takes to stop it. And that's what we did.
You know, they kept it under wraps because I was underage, but I was an armed deacon. I did mobile patrols with them and patrolling the neighborhood. I also pulled guard at various homes of civil rights leaders and homes where people in our community were housing the civil rights workers that came to Bogalusa.
Well, I think the deacons, for instance, serve their purpose, and right now, the Supreme Court and the courts of the land are listening. So now you don't need them. See, this was sort of a way that you could feel safe as can be, because you knew then that after you've tried everything you can try, you still had another leverage, another means of protecting yourself somewhat. But now you don't need that, because if something should happen, you got the media, you got you guys, you got people that's going to talk. Back then, you wouldn't say nothing because you wouldn't be allowed to. They would kill you too.
But the number of deacons, you know, that was secret. That was, you know, you might look for us in one spot and we'll pop up somewhere else. You know, wherever it was a hot spot, the deacons had a habit of showing up. You know, and that's where we were effective at.
Well, I think now the deacons are basically the youths. I mean, these young folks now are not going to take what these old folk took back then, and they know that. So they know you come, you better come right, so because they out there, they ain't going to take it now. But back then, the people were afraid. I mean, they really were. I mean, and they had every right to be because they had been mistreated so long, so bad, until they felt that there was no other recourse. They had to take it. But now, the young people knowing that, you bleed like me, so don't try it.
You still have some of the ones in my group, my age group, and some of them are older still now, but they got a younger group that, they listen to what we've told them, and they already have their ideas, and they're willing to lay down and defend their community. And so, we're not, I'll say, the mass. We're just laying semi-dominant. If the need arises, they're there.
The hardened kernel of a deacon is somebody that will stand up. Stand up. I mean, go to court, go to appeals, go to whatever means that the law provides to get a point across. And once you have been given a decision of the land, then you got to live by it.
Well, some of them were known. Some of them didn't try to have it. Like, you had your president, he was a spokesman, Charles Sams. He was a spokesman, so his face was out there. And I never tried to have it. You had some that they were low key, but the authorities and the Klan, they knew who some of them were, like Rowan Burris or others. People like Rowan, they didn't have, Fletcher Anderson, they didn't have that they were Klan. Sam Barnes, we call him the Klan, another Klan.
I felt that I was doing what was right, and I didn't do anybody any harm. I did not, and I still don't hold any animosity or any grudge against any of those white folks. I don't know any of them that I hate for what they did. I do believe that they did what they did because they thought they were doing the right thing.
It's not up to us anymore. It's up to each generation to see what needs to happen and step up to the plate. This generation cannot parade on Martin Luther King's Day and think that they're doing something.
We got a lot of different archives. I know that University of California, Berkeley has a lot of information on it, and they have a museum, I think, it's got a lot of archives in Harlem in New York. And Johnson's publication should have a lot. But I would ask a lot of our young students to, do research and look it up and let the story be told, because the Deacons For Defense movie that Forrest Whitaker now did, it was not always was factual, but there was a lot of fiction in it also.
Young Afro-American men, I think today, need to read our book of Deacons For Defense, and they will get a lot out of reading it because it goes back to where all this started, and it would show them where we came from and where we are now. And somewhere down the road they would have lost a little ground, but still, if they would read it and consider trying to help to do something about it, we could come back and really do a lot more in this respect. But the book is one of the most important things. They need to read it. And the movie, which it's okay, but I think you need to read the book. There's nobody to really talk to about it because it's not that many of us left to talk to. But the main thing is get the book and read it. And when you read it, so you need to read something more than one time to really understand it, you need to read it about 3 times. We make sure that you understand it and know what we went through and how much hell we went through at that time trying to get to where we are now.